Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first meeting of the Council's Executive Committee back in the Town Hall. My name is Councillor Lee Roberts. I'm the Vice Chair of the committee. This meeting is being recorded live and streamed on YouTube, except where confidential or exempt items are discussed. May I take the opportunity to remind you of the domestic arrangements? It is important that all participants conduct themselves in the appropriate manner. Please put your mobile phones on silent. When members speak, please use the microphones, because if you don't, the sound will not be picked up on the live stream. Please do not interrupt other speakers. In line with current COVID guidelines, everyone is reminded to adhere to social distancing and to wear a face mask when moving around the room, except if you're medically exempt. Face masks may be removed when you are seated if you wish. To vote on matters, I will confirm the recommendation and request a mover and a seconder. A roll call will not be undertaken now we are back in the same room, unless, of course, a named vote is moved and seconded. That's formalities done. It's strange to be back in person. I won't dwell on it. I think we should get straight to it, but I just want to firstly thank the council staff for doing all the necessary precautions and making arrangements to make this possible. So thanks for doing that. So straight away we'll go into the agenda. It's part one of the agenda. Number one, urgent items. I've not been informed of any urgent items. Delegations. So this is to receive any matters members wish to move to a non-delegated. I think Councillor Edwards is indicating.
Yeah. Could I move items 10 and 11 non-delegated, please?
Yes, there's a seconder for that.
Chair, could I second, please?
All those in favour? Against? Okay, motion lost. Admission of public and press. I don't think we've got anybody. They're obviously all watching on YouTube. Declarations of interest. Does any members have any declarations of interest pertaining to the agenda? No. Thank you. Apologies for absence and attendance of substitute members. I've got some apologies, John. So, Councillors Blezard, Barlow, Brooke and Maddox. Oh, sorry, no, Barlow. Biggins is the one, sorry.
Mr Chair, I'm substituting for Councillor Biggins for this meeting only.
I'm substituting for...
Chair, I'm subbing as well, but I'm not sure which one I'm subbing for, but I'm subbing for one of them.
Okay, thank you. Confirmation of minutes, item 6. To confirm the minutes held at the meeting 23rd of March 2021. Are they agreed?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Public participation. Any member of the public who wishes to ask a question, make representations or present a deputation or petition at this meeting should have applied 2 days before the meeting, and we've not had anything, so that's good. Right, item 8, terms of reference. I'm not sure who's presenting this.
Sorry, Chair, it's a preliminary because it's the first committee of the new municipal year, and it's just to note the terms of reference of the executive committee, right. So it's just a note.
Okay, thank you. Does everyone agree to note the terms of reference for the committee? Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair. If we're just noting the terms of reference, which I agree with, or whatever, but can we have an investigation why the Housing Forum is not actually its own standalone committee? Because I think it was reported in the LGA and whatever, and there's been no movement on it, and I think we're doing a disservice to the officers in the housing for the work they do and whatever, where they haven't got a voice. So it'd be nice, can we just look into it, Chair?
Just a comment, certainly we can take it on board. If you recall last year when the peer assessment came, we did review committees and terms of reference of the meetings of the council, and it was determined last year not to have any additional committees, but clearly we can continue to review that as we go through the next round of constitutional changes as part of the annual review, if that's what members would like to decide. But members did discuss it last year, but I appreciate COVID and other events have overtaken everybody since then.
I apologise, Chair, if my memory is going, but I thought we were going to discuss it. It's part of the recommendation from the LGA. Obviously, I've got it wrong, but if we can do some form of investigation to see if we can make it become its own standalone committee, Chair.
I think it's fair enough to say, given it hasn't been discussed before, but you've raised it again, we could do with maybe revisiting it, just refresh what the reasons why we decided not to do it last time, and just to see if there's what the pros and cons are to make sure we are actually happy with how that committee is operating. So I think we can do that outside of the exec and just probably revisit it just to refresh our memories. That'll be worthwhile. Okay. Item 9. Now, the norm chair of the meeting likes an exciting item on the agenda, so no pressure, but drop zone youth project presentation by Cass Corkill, please.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me. Councillor Brooke asked me to come along to have a bit of a conversation about what we do. He did ask me to make it fun. I'm not sure I can do that because it's the end of the term, very tired. But I'll give you a little bit of a brief overview of what we do and what we're going to be doing moving forward. So we are probably the largest youth organisation in Barrow, across Furness as well, established in 2004. We're a charity and a limited company by guarantee. We currently lease 3 buildings in Barrow, one in Bath Street, one across the road, and one up in Ormsgill, and we also use space in Dalton and Askham to deliver our youth services. I will talk about our new building near to the end of the presentation. But yeah, so basically there's 2 arms of our organisation. We're probably known foremost for our youth work delivery, but we have a really extensive education provision, which we educate young people that are referred to us from mainstream schools, local authorities and the looked after children's education service. So that's our business side. We work alongside secondary schools, primary schools, and we deliver GCSEs, functional skills and a lot of life skills alongside that. So that's our business side, of which is probably keeps us ticking over when the funding doesn't come in for the other bits. So yeah, so it's been going now for a lot of years, and it is a really good service. Our youth work delivery we do right across Furness. Due to COVID over the last 14 months, we've done a lot of it out on the streets, detached, so we haven't been able to use a lot of our buildings. We've kept our LGBT support group as a face-to-face closed group because it's really important that they were seeing us. Everything else has been done out on the street. So all our buildings in Ormsgill were shut down, unfortunately. We are opening them back up after WIT Week, so that's really positive. And we're developing our services to work with the younger age group as well, so we can get in a little bit earlier. As I said, we've mentioned the LGBT group, which is a fab group of young people that have just recently organised our Furness Pride event that happened a couple of weeks ago, which was really, really successful. And we had a really positive response from most people across Furness. We had the occasional negative one, but we sort of flooded with positivity. Huge thank you to the Borough Council, especially Bevan Haley, who did a fantastic performance. I did send the presentation. The link is there if you ever want to watch the event. It's on our YouTube channel. It's well worth a watch. And next year we're planning to do it out on the street, fingers crossed, hopefully. And it was very much led by our young people, which is what we tend to do. We tend to work on a basis that we listen to our young people and try and give them what they ask for and what they need. So that's really positive. There is a picture there, if you've got the presentation, of you and Haley. So the other part of what we do is a lot of transition work with our young people who are moving on from schools to post-16 provision. So we set up a local transition group with the local authority, and we've just received some funding from the Holiday Activities Fund. So we're putting in an extensive transition support over the summer. So that includes a lot of functional skills that young people can sit. We're also doing hopefully a young firefighters course, health and safety courses, and we try and get all our young people into their intended destinations. 2 years ago, we had an 87% result in getting our young people into something post-16, which was really positive. Alongside this, we also deliver a Young Health Champions course, which is all about peer mentoring and to do with alcohol education. So it's an accredited level 2 qualification, and that is going to run alongside the transition group. And that was actually what we got an award for down in London a couple of years ago, ourselves and the police. So that's another part of what we do. The next part obviously leads on from our youth work delivery, and we formed a youth work partnership at the end of 2019, which brought youth work delivery partners together alongside members from the County Council, the Borough Council, the police and health. So we meet every fortnight and we're trying to sort of change what's happening in Barrow and Furness in terms of what we can offer our young people. As a result of this, we've been able to pull in some funding from the County Council to develop a mental health session that runs once a week, and we're doing that in conjunction with the police. Just had a meeting this morning in one of our local schools, so it's going to be opened up to our schools. I haven't run it past the partnership yet, sorry Bev. So that's what we're aiming to do, and it's also about us getting on other people's agendas to sort of give everybody what our young people are saying and what they want to do in the local area. So that's been really positive. I don't know if you've got the presentation, but the partnership consists of ourselves, Braithwaite, Furness Carers, Furness Multicultural, Walney Community Trust, and Leonard Cheshire and Youth Ability. So we've all got young people at the centre of what we do. Okay. I think that's about it, apart from the new building. So obviously the new building, so we were initially based across the road in Cornwallis Street. Due to funding, we had to leave that building and split up and sort of retract out of the town centre, which affected our delivery in terms of our footfall of young people. We were sat right on a bus route, so young people would get off the bus and come in and see us. That dwindled when we moved up into Hinepool. So we've been pushing and pushing to get back into the town centre for the last 4 years. And thank you to a lot of people sat around this table. We're going to move into the Age UK building on Abbey Road very shortly. I'm led to believe the lease is coming this week, so yeah. So that, and that is going to be amazing. Age UK are staying in that building for 3 years as well with us. So we're going to be looking at intergenerational work for our young people. And everything that I've discussed, hopefully, will be pulled together under one roof. So we're hoping to have a youth hub. So a one-stop shop for children, young people and the families. Open 7 days, 7 nights, a week, hopefully, to give our young people more opportunities and something to do. There's a rising issue in antisocial behaviour and other stuff going on, but our young people don't have a lot to do in the area, so this is hopefully going to target some of those issues. And on the back of that, just being into a school this morning, we're going to be delivering a knife crime pilot in Furness Academy after the holidays to try and pull some more funding to roll it out across all our schools. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if anyone wants to ask me anything or not, or want to find out more information.
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions or comments? Yes, Bev?
I just wanted to thank Kath Reilly and to thank Drop Zone. Youth services nationally have been decimated over the past 10 to 15 years for a variety of reasons. And some towns like ours and like the size of ours don't have what we have, and we have managed to retain some element of youth services through Drop Zone and through the expansion through the Furness Youth Work Partnership. So I'd just like to say, you know, we're lucky to have it, and I think that that's recognised through certainly the County Council funding and Borough Council support through getting the New Age UK building. And so really, thanks to you, Kath, and the team, because you have all been absolutely amazing. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Bev.
Anne?
Thank you, and thanks, Kath. Absolutely great presentation, and as of course, Drop Zone is something that I think we're all proud of the way that you've taken the challenges around young people, and we've got some challenging young people in the borough, but you know, your organisation have pulled that partnership together to work together to make sure that we have got the child and the young people at the centre of everything that we do. And I think that's the important point, is that we have got young people and at the centre of everything that you do, and getting those youth workers out on the street trying to go where young people are. I think that's a really important point as well, and you have taken your youth workers right out into the heart of that. And I think if we can, I'd love to see more money coming in to be able to do more of that, because I think it's really important we actually go to where the young people are instead of trying to drag them into buildings which they don't want to be in. So it would be great to do some targeted youth work out with young people to see what we can do. So, and I know that's what your organisation has been trying to do for over a long time, and you've got some targeted youth support workers doing that, and when they do it, they have some great successes. So I just say to you all, thank you for the work that you're doing. It's really important work, but hopefully in the future we might be able to get some funding to be able to target even more people at working with young people in the borough. And there is some challenges around, we know that. So thank you.
No, can I just respond to that? Because obviously I know we all talk about money and we have to pull in money for the majority of stuff we do, but I think COVID for our organisations, there's been a real positive element to what's happened in terms of everybody working together. You know, you would never see a third sector organisation probably sat in here. We would never see a third sector organisation sitting at meetings talking about what we're going to do moving forward with children's services, etc. So I think that's a massive thank you to everybody else really for like seeing the value in what all our third sector organisations do, not just the ones that work with young people, but right across the board. So I think thank you all as well.
Okay, I just want to add something again to thank you for all you're doing. It says a lot that Drop Zone have sort of become the go-to organisation when we're looking at elements of any sort of young person's provision in any bids we're doing, and part of the LRF for dealing with some of the issues that came up during the LRF. So it says a lot that Drop Zone were at the heart of everything like that, and I'm glad you picked up on that we're actually trying to use your experience and your organisation as the right way to deliver things and to get things moving. A couple of things you said, I think, about the Pride event, when you said you had some negative responses, but to me that shows the importance of doing something like Pride, because it's addressing those concerns and making sure people are aware that while you might hear negative responses, it is overwhelmingly positive, that response to that event, I think. So I think that just it gives people heart that, you know, there might be some negative voices out there, but overall you are supported, and just look at the sort of response that was out there. It was great to see that. I think you're right about COVID. It's been challenging for young people. So the some of the knife crime lately, and some of the ASB and mental health issues for young people. I think we're just seeing the bow wave of that maybe to come. So I think you'll have a lot to do, but I think I can speak for everyone and say we will support as much as we possibly can. And again, thank you for everything you're doing. Thanks, Kath.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Des?
I agree with everything everybody said. I've been involved with certain projects over the years and even outside my council duties. Pit Stop that I was with till the funding run out. Looking after young people, they were giving them building experience, buildings, mechanics. So what I like about this is that you're coming together as a team, and there's a lot of young people coming together that would never come under other circumstances. There's not just yourselves, there's others as well. And I'm all for it. I think I hold my hand up to you and for all the work you do for young people. And I only hope that everything carries on into the future and you get some positive results.
Yes. Anyone else? Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kath. That was very good. Brilliant. Okay, should we move on to agenda item 10, Cumbria CVS. I think, Sue, you're presenting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. This report follows on from a briefing session that members had with Cumbria CVS back in January this year. At that, there was a discussion around the roadmap for sustainability for Cumbria CVS, and there were questions around what was delivered for the area, and the Appendix 1 sets that out as like a single sheet to explain the Cumbria CVS offer. To sort of just pick a few points out of that, there's proposed to be a local CVS newsletter, a restart of that newsletter, more attendance or more officers attending local partnerships to raise the profile of Cumbria CVS and what that can do and does achieve. I think it's recognised as quite a low profile potentially in some areas, some aspects. And also member briefings, so members would be kind of much more aware of what Cumbria CVS is achieving for the borough. The ask is for £16,000 for 1 year of funding, and that would come from reserves. It's not a budgeted item. Members might remember from the briefing we had, there was a request across the county, and I haven't had 100% response, but those that have responded, other authorities, are also funding Cumbria CVS, some for more than 1 year, but for us it's an ask for 1 year. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Yes, certainly. Yes, if you like, yeah.
The reason why I asked for this to be non-delegated, my first question is, and I was at the briefing session, which many councillors weren't, why was this not included in the budget originally? Some councillors may consider this amount of 16,000 a drop in the ocean, but to me, it's a lot of money. It needs discussion and it needs approval from the whole council. As all of us are accountable for the budget, if you go bankrupt, we will be the accountable body, and you're heading that way. Sue Roberts has done a great job balancing the books, but she's only following the wishes of the Labour administration. I'm very concerned that a small amount of councillors are approving this £16,000. It needs to go to council. Thank you.
Any other comments or points? Do you want me to answer? Come out, or do you want to? Okay, go on.
Just Yep, through you, Chair. It wasn't in the budget because there was more detail requested from Cumbria CVS that wasn't available at the time I was finalising figures, which was also in January. And it was a request for multi-year funding, and there was kind of an instruction back to the lead member to discuss that further. And this report is a result of that. So it's 1 year funding with the detail appended to set out the offer more formally to members. The use of the reserve that is indicated in the report is delegated to this committee. That's why I brought it here today.
Thanks, Sir. And I'd just like to add that it's a decision of, you've had a member briefing on it. Every member had opportunity to ask questions and also to feedback to their particular party's representation on this committee. And this committee makes a decision. So you'd have the same proportional representation as you would at full council as you have in this committee. So I think the voting would be still the same if you weighted it that way. CVS as an organisation, it is a lot of money. They do bring a lot to the area. They do carry out a lot of work. And I think it was mentioned, and it's been mentioned in the report, a lot of it just goes under the radar a bit because they just help other organisations in their low-key manner. And while that's probably to their credit in normal times, it's to their detriment when they're looking for funding. And they need to demonstrate what they're doing. We've had more than one presentation of them as a leadership team. We asked a lot of questions, and they've always come back with the answers. Other districts have also gone ahead and funded them. We realised what would be missing that we'd have to replace if they weren't doing what all they do. They have been instrumental in a lot of our funding bids, like the Townsdale and on the Local Resilience Forum during COVID. They do a lot of good work, and we'd have to replace that if they weren't doing it. And it's fair to say that they will be more visible to us, and by having councillors brief more and having officers involved more in some of their initiatives and their projects, at least we can make sure it aligns with our ambitions and visions as part of our council plan and going forward. So I think although it's an ask and it is a lot of money, no one's saying it isn't, no one suggested that in the report. It is a lot of money, but the value of it, I think, has been shown by the presentations they've made to us, and also going forward, we could have more sort of involvement and engagement with them to help them probably work closer with us so we can see all they're doing in future. So if no one's got any more comments, can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Can I move it, Chair, and just to think... A lot of money, 16,000, quite rightly so, but if you look at the benefits, 74 people into work, 65 in their education and whatever, it's listed there what they've achieved. And you quite rightly saying some of the things are hidden. I know of 3 places, including one in my own ward, who's got a lottery grant, and that's only because the CVS actually fill the forms in. CVS will do the monitoring, because the monitoring forms, as everybody knows sat around this table, is absolutely horrendous. And they're the experts in it. I can remember a long time ago, one of the organisations got the monitoring form through and they couldn't handle it. And they just walked away. And I know it's not an ideal world or whatever, but they are the best thing that's going, and £16,000 might sound a lot of money, but the benefits we get out of it far outweigh £16,000. So I'd like to move it, Chair, the recommendation.
Thank you. Take a bit, John.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Kevin said, because it may seem a lot of money, but we've now got a Barra team. We've got people in that team who are very skilled at drawing in outside funding, and I think that's the issue. It's not what they get from the local authorities, which is an important part, because if outside agencies are going for voluntary funding or going to an organisation for funding, most of them want to know if they've got some support from the local authority, because they see that as a good base in which to springboard getting the more grants and getting the grants in. And it's an important thing that we need to do in Barrow now. There's not a lot of local authority money in the system, seeing as we've taken all the cuts that we did take, and we have to look for that outside funding now to support these organisations. And it's important we have the base there where they've got expertise, where the voluntary organisations can go and actually ask for support, and CVS are doing that. So it's a very important part of what we're trying to do in Barrow, is to get more outside funding into the town to grow the business here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I have no dispute about CVS. They do a good job. What my dispute is that a small amount of councillors here are discussing this issue, this expense, when we've got a full council. There's very little debate as it is, and other councillors are not having the opportunity to put a point of view forward.
Do you want to come back on that, Sam?
Yeah, just really briefly. The Constitution is agreed by full council. We did a full review of the Constitution over the last 18 months, and that did look at delegations to all the different committees, and that was signed off by full council. And this is part of that delegation now in terms of some of the finances and some of the decisions that the exec are delegated to take on behalf of the whole council. So again, we've had another comment from Kevin already about Constitution and what's been changed in the Constitution. So maybe it's worth picking up a member briefing because this was a lot of this was done during COVID, just to make sure that members are aware of the constitutional changes that we've all agreed as part of that review.
Okay, thank you. Okay, after that. Yeah, moving seconded, so yeah. All those in favour? Thanks everyone. Right, can we move on to job evaluation? That's Sue again, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yep, so this report is one of the strands that came from the peer review from the Local Government Association, but also links into plans we already had to look at elements of organisational development. In particular, this is concerned with job evaluation, which is part of a pay and grading scheme. So job evaluation looks at how individual posts can be measured and scored in a sense, so that you end up with job rankings. So jobs will be different in different departments of the authority, but there'll be some similar characteristics, some different characteristics, and how those are all weighted to come to a ranking, I would call it. You would then use those rankings to apply grades to produce pay, so it's pay and grading. The current process is a mixture of historical job roles that have been updated for changes in technology, ways of working, but are generally historically based. There's some newer jobs that have been created from looking at the market outside the authority. Generally other authorities, not the market in general terms. What we need is a consistent single scheme that is clear to staff, so clear they can understand where they fit into that, and if there's a change in responsibilities, they can very clearly see how that will impact their grade and pay, and if there's a new job, there's something to design it against. To get from A to B, we need some assistance, and this report is asking not only to commence that project, but to ask for funding. It would be the Local Government Association workforce specialists that would help us to get there with this. And at the moment, the request is for the LGA to take a cross-section of posts, so across the whole authority, make sure we've got a good mix, apply those to the NJC scheme, which is a recognised job evaluation scheme, to produce some evidence, some information for us to come back to look at how we can design a job evaluation and pay and grading scheme to apply to the authority. There is a slight difference with some of the posts. Chief officers and deputy chief officers come under a different negotiating bodies, have a different pay scheme, and the LGA advice is that those roles don't really fit into an NJC scheme, but they have their own designed scheme, which looks more at the roles, responsibilities, the skills, technical abilities, skill set really that brings comes along with those higher level positions. So there's sort of a split between the amounts requested there, the two separate pieces of work. So this will create the evidence base for recommendations to come forward. It doesn't form policy. These particular policies, job evaluation scheme and the pay policy, are within the full council remit, but we need to kind of get started and get some information to help us to come forward with proposals. It would be funded from reserves. I haven't budgeted for this, but it is kind of part of our progression and will come from existing reserves set aside for the progress of areas identified in the peer review. Sorry, I got a croaky voice, excuse me. We really need to sort of address this as part of organisational development as well. It's a big step, but it's an important one and something we've wanted to bring forward for a little while now, but we do need that support to bring the evidence forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Hazel?
Yeah. Job evaluation project, £17,225 from reserves, once again, at this time of year when we're hardly into a new budget. I think it's totally unnecessary. We've got devolution looming. The councils in Cumbria, including ours, will be totally reorganised. It's very premature because it's going to have to be done again when the councils are rehashed. We're constantly told about a heavy workload for officers, and yet we're putting this forward and they're saying that it'd be a heavy workload for officers, etc. I'd like to really think about why we're doing this. I've got my own opinions. Can I just ask for some information as well, genuine information, about the Brathay Trust on page 30? Could you tell me where exactly they're fitting in and what specifically they're doing on this? Because I understood that they were a team building organisation. Thank you.
Hazel, do you want to respond to that, Sue? Thank you.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. If there's anybody else, I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, with Brathay Trust, they're helping with the rollout of the Values and Behaviours programme. So that is team building, but it's also skills for managers. So managing teams that are now going to be not all on site, so a mixture of some in the office, some at home. That is a new thing to manage. So we're looking at the skills we need our managers to have, because we're going to continue working in a very flexible way. That does change the skill set that managers need to have. I haven't managed mixed teams. I've always managed staff that I can go and see or work with. It's very different to have that remoteness. They're also working with us on the recognition scheme for staff that go above and beyond. We do want to recognise that. They're helping to create that scheme with us, with our HR officers. I've noted there we've got appraisal as well. Performance appraisal is something we already have, but we want to link that more to behaviours rather than numbers of outputs that we want to discuss with staff on the half-yearly appraisal. It's more about demonstrating behaviours and making sure that the culture is right within the organisation. So Brathay are not the whole of our organisational development programme, they're just a part of it. That's the values part of it. Why? Yes, well, whichever way around, the authority changes into another authority, we still need to have our establishment kind of allocated a role, and a role that's fairly rewarded, graded, so that the work needs to be done whatever happens. Going into another authority, however that works, whichever way we go, there is a transition period. Nothing will be done with staff grading immediately. It's likely to be 2 to 3 years in. So if we accept that where we are now with staff grading is entirely 100% correct, we'll leave that there for potentially three years at least. We don't think it's correct. We think we have got little anomalies that we need to address. We want to do that consistently and fairly, and the way to do that is to do do the whole create a scheme and apply that across the authority. It's not in the budget. I think that was a question, sorry, but you're right, it's not. The work we were doing, again, around the peer review work was always going to be one-off, so it's going to come out of reserves as a part of our transformation reserve. So it's not a recurring cost, it's just a one-off, so I wouldn't kind of feature that in the budget. What will feature in the budget are the implications of what comes out of the scheme design, but we're away from that at the moment. But the first step is to get this work done, to get a plan of next steps and how that would be implemented. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Oh, sorry, Andy.
Thanks, Sue. Can I just ask, when was the last time this job evaluation was carried out, please?
That is a bit of a memory test, but I think it would be 2010. Any officers? John, you were here then? It's about 2010, yeah. Yeah, about 2010. It took about 18 months. So we're not doing it that way. We've got a different approach using the LGA specialists rather than trying to require staff to assess each other's posts. There was like an internal panel approach to use last time. I think it's much easier to use an independent body to have this done that have advised lots and lots of authorities. So we're going to shortcut it by using expertise rather than trying to train our staff to do extra work by doing the evaluations themselves. But yeah, it was 2010.
Thank you. Anybody else? Bev? Sorry.
Yeah. Can I just say that...
Sorry, go on.
If it was in 2010, then this job evaluation is long overdue, I would say, and it should not be influenced by what may or may happen in the coming year. This is about the staff, this is about their supervision, appraisal, culture change, linking it with the new council plan, about staff being paid properly, it's about their welfare and their support. And I think it's an absolute priority that we have a really good job evaluation process in our council for the benefit of our staff. So, regardless of what happens and what's coming.
Anne?
Yeah, and I wanted to say similar to what Bev's just said. We have a duty to our staff, and we have, you know, over a number of years when we've gone through the cuts that we've gone through, whether I know you don't like it, but our staff have been cut to the bone, and we've put more and more responsibility on other staff, and it is time to do that re-evaluation to make sure that we're not piling responsibility after responsibility and onto already staff that are already at the brink of doing a lot. So as Bev said, it is really important we do that evaluation. We had that peer review, we went through the process, and I understand we are going to go through devolution, but that doesn't mean to say that we stop everything that we're doing and wait for the devolution to hit us. We've still got a lot of work to do, and we've still got another couple of years before we go into that reorganisation. I think we may get the proposal coming out in July, but it's going to take a long time to get to where we're going to go. So it's really important we actually do the right thing by our staff and make sure that we've got that evaluation, we've got those good jobs, and we've got the support that's needed to carry us through that organisation that's going to come. If not, you know, we're just heaping more pressure on them, then that isn't fair. So I agree with Bev and I agree with the proposal here.
Thanks, Anne. Anyone else? Personally as well, through my job, we've been through regrading and job evaluation countless times. It makes it fair on the employee. It makes the employer to be a good employer. So as a council, we want to be a good employer. I think it ensures there's a fair reward for the work you're doing, and you're doing rewarded to an equivalent level than someone else who's doing the equivalent amount of work, which doesn't always happen in workplaces. And it's better for your career prospects because you can see a career path and know what you have to do to achieve whatever you want to do in your career. It's about getting the best out of people, I think, personally. And the LGR devolution, which is on the horizon, it'll take some years to bed in, but also it sets up the council and the staff better to simulate or to a smooth transition into whatever new authorities chosen for us. So If there's no one else, I'll read out the recommendation and get moving seconder. So the recommendation is 1, approve the commencement of the job evaluation project. 2, approve the direct appointment of the LGA to support the job evaluation project. 3, approve the use of £13,000 from reserves to fund the NJC job evaluation work. And 4, approve the use of £4,225 from reserves to fund the JNC job evaluation work. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay. Got it, John? Right. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Right, shall we move on to item 12, which is the DEFRA consultation. I know that the normal chair is going to be tuned in. This is the one he was waiting for, so no pressure, Steph. Thank you.
If I introduce it and then I'll pass over to John Byford for any detailed questions. So this is the proposed consultation response to DEFRA on 2 pieces of work they've put out to ask for views on. Both have a potential significant impact on the council in terms of what we do around recycling and litter. We've had a couple of member briefing sessions leading up to this to make sure that you can make some informed decisions about the response that you've got in front of you today. So if I pass over to John, he can talk you through the 2 pieces of legislation that are out for consultation.
Thank you, Steph. As Steph said, these are very important pieces of consultation that have come out. This is probably the biggest change in waste management since the Environment Protection Act back in 1990, and it will fundamentally change the way that the council is financed in accordance with the packaging that is collected through the refuse collection system. As a waste collection authority and a litter authority, it affects us on both of those fronts. The response has got to be back in on the 4th of June, so we want to get it to members before it went in. It's been a very short time scale for the amount of work that we've been doing. There's yet another one on consistency in waste collection that's just been issued, and that's due in on the 4th of July. So we're working hard at the moment to try and get a response back to the next committee. But it's a very short time scale that they've given us to do that. We're also working with the Cumbria Strategic Waste Partnership to put a joint response in as well, to give our comments a bit more weight, as will all the authorities in Cumbria will be saying very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar comments going forward. The purpose of the EPA is to try and put the responsibility for producing packaging and then us having to deal with it back onto the producers, so they pay the full cost of doing that work. It's to encourage them to try and change their ways and reduce the amount of packaging that they're doing. And up to now, they've just been able to dump it on, and we'll go around and collect it all for them. Well, now they're going to have to pay the full costs of dealing with that, and that is seen as an incentive to them to actually change what they're doing. As I said, it's a very detailed thing. The EPR alone is over 200 pages in length. There's an awful lot of detailed stuff in there, and it's extremely boring to read. I think it's probably deliberately done that way so that everybody gives up and just agrees with it. But there's also 104 questions that they pose, and we found that there was, as far as we're concerned, there was 42 of them weren't really relevant to our sort of local authority. But we have answered all the others, or sought clarification if we weren't sure of whether to support it or not support it. The key policies are all set out in the report, and I don't intend to go through them all because we'll be here all day. The main thing is on cost. They're committed to pay what they call the full net costs, but I'm just worried there might be a bit of backpedaling on that before the final things come out. And it says it's necessary costs to be defined as the cost of the waste management needed to deliver the packaging EPR outcomes and targets through a provision of a consistent, efficient and effective system. But it doesn't say what one of them is. So we've sought clarification so that we know what we're getting into when it comes on. There's two ways that they're looking and doing that. Is one on actual cost reporting, where we would have to tell them what it's cost us, but it's going to be an awful lot of work to try and define everything that we do, because you've got to do a split between overheads and everything, between what's packaging waste and what's other waste, and it's going to be a very time-consuming, expensive job. And we've said in there that if they go down that way, that needs to be part of the costs that we recover, so that we're not meeting this extra cost on top. Their preferred option is a modelled cost approach, where you be benchmarked with other authorities similar to yourself, and they're looking about 69 different family groups. But again, we've raised a lot of concerns about where you would fit. You know, are you going to be at the top end of one group when you really should be in the next? So we want an appeals procedure, and also to move during the years to go back to a full cost, where you can actually demonstrate your costs and get properly reimbursed for it. Because it looks to us anyway at the moment that there's a lot of movement that they can maybe save themselves a lot of money by putting us in the wrong bands. So we want to clear that up. The other thing that the EPR covers is the cost of collecting packaging waste from litter. And as you'll know, most, a very large amount of the waste that we collect are drinks bottles and cans and things like that. So we need to get our money back from that. Again, that's going to be a time-consuming thing to be able to demonstrate the proportion of things. So they're looking at schemes where they might do it nationally, where they can look at what the proportions are and then pass those costs on to people. But all the responses to the questions that are relative to us are in Appendix 1, and the full response that we draft response at the moment, because we've got one more meeting tomorrow with county representatives to just finalise the last few little details before we actually send the response in. But they're all contained in Appendix 3. With regard to the DRS consultation, the primary objective to that is to increase recycling rates on what they call in-scope containers, which they're mostly drinks containers, bottles, plastic bottles, glass bottles, aluminium and steel cans. At the moment, they've ruled cartons out, but we've asked them to reconsider whether that's the right approach or not. They're looking to increase the quality of the recycling material, because if people are actually taking the stuff back, you'll get it in a lot better condition than if it's all jumped in with all other materials. So it should improve that. They're now pushing this back, possibly the earliest, I think it's going to be late 2024 before it's brought in. Again, this one is over 200 pages again, and 98 questions that's coming on that. 29 of those weren't relevant, and we've commented on the rest. The key proposal set out, as I've said, it is what's going to be in scope and what isn't. But one of the main things they're deciding on, they still made up their minds, I can't see why, but whether it's going to be an all-in scheme, which all containers up to 3 litres in volume, or whether they're going to go what they call an on-the-go scheme, which is anything up to 750 millilitres in size, which is normal little drinks bottles and that. But strangely, they said if they go down that route, they were going to rule out multi-packs. which is going to make it extremely confusing for people. Also, Scotland have already legislated, and so have Wales, to go with the all-in. So why they'd even consider doing an on-the-go, we can't see why you would want to do it. So we've supported the all-in situation. Return points are going to be what we call reverse vending machines, where you go along, put your bottle in, and you get a credit for returning that container. And but we see a problem with this that isn't in the consultation really, is about they mentioned obligations might extend to online retailers, but there's nothing in there which one of the biggest suppliers is the at-home service that a lot of people are getting now, especially since COVID. And there doesn't seem to be anywhere there that people can, if they're not going out and aren't going to the supermarket, how do they get their money back? And it could affect a lot of very low-income people if they have to pay 20p on a bottle of drink, and they've got no way of getting it back to the supermarket. So we want them to look at that. What else have we got? They are looking at, well, I don't understand it completely, a digital scheme where you would scan the bottle and it's beyond me. I just can't understand it, so I won't go into that. I'll wait till they come out with something different. But that's going to be after the scheme starts anyway, which seems a bit pointless. They say that they're committed to ensuring local authorities are not financially disadvantaged, but I think we'll wait and see about that. We're trying to challenge as much as we possibly can to try and get the best outcome. There's, they're looking at how that's going to be done, and there's 3 options set out in the thing, and option 2 is DEFRA's preferred proposal, but we've indicated that there's insufficient clarity there to be able to support any of them that we can see, so we want them to come back with a lot more information before we can decide whether we'd support any of these options. And again, the answers to all the questions that are relevant are all in Appendix 2 of the report, and the full response is in Appendix 4. Thank you, Chair.
Any comments or questions? Hazel and Des.
Yeah, can I just thank John for his presentation? He always talks sense and talks straightforward, which leads me on to my next thing. The briefing that we had the other day, which was very interesting, why did we have the other 2 gentlemen, I won't mention their names, when John is obviously au fait with everything that's going on and giving us the information? Why did we have the other 2 chaps as well? And as I said at our briefing, this recycling was going on 40 years ago when I went to Sweden. Every single supermarket had the crushing the cans and taking the bottles back. And there's quite a lot of people here of an age that can remember taking pop bottles back to get the money back. So it's nothing new. You know, people aren't going to hold their hands up and say, oh, we're not going to do that. We had disabled people before, etc., but it still worked, you know. It's the way forward. But what I can't understand is why we've got John there, who gives a good presentation, knows what he's talking about, and we had the other 2 chaps at a briefing.
So Hanny Cox was there from Cumbria County Council from a waste point of view to talk about what Cumbria was looking to do as a consultation response. So we wanted to listen to members' views to inform the Cumbrian one. And also Mike Gardner was there for a completely different piece of work from RAP, so that was sort of interlinked but a separate conversation to this.
I accept what you're saying. It seemed to be the same thing to me.
Chair, good.
Yes, certainly, John.
The reason Hanny was there is that although I've done a fair bit of work on this, he's an absolute expert. He's the one that's read every single line and responded on every single thing. And we wanted him there that if there was something that came up that I wasn't aware of or couldn't answer, he was there as an expert because he's done the bulk of the work for the group and helped us go through. I think there was no way that we could have got the response done in the timescales that DEFRA give. It'll be the same with the consistency one. If he wasn't doing the bulk of the work for us and point us in the right direction of what's hidden, because there is a lot of things, unless you read every single line, there's lots of hidden stuff in there that doesn't come out. Right? And we brought him along as the expert so that members could get answers to any questions that I couldn't answer, probably. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Des, did you want to comment?
I was going to ask John, and I know it's been discussed and the possibilities, food waste. And now you use food waste. Everybody in this country eats food every day. Well, I think most people do anyway. I just wondered, it can be used for other things. At the moment, I think it just goes to landfill. People just dispose of it and it goes to landfill. I think you can use food waste to benefit a lot of people in this country.
The food waste is the subject of the next consistency thing, and the part of their proposals at the moment is that everybody in the country is going to get a food waste collection once per week, and that's the mainstay of their consistency one. But that's what we'll be coming back with at the next meeting with our comments on that. There's a lot of technical details around that. I mean, at the moment, most of it doesn't go to landfill. It usually goes to treatment plants, such as the MBT plant that we've got in Cumbria that we use, which it turns it into a fuel. So it's not just buried and wasted. At least it's being used for something. But the government wants to actually, and it's not recycled, they want to use it to make a fuel. And it'll be either going to an anaerobic digestion plant which produces methane, which can be used as a fuel, or it goes to an in-vessel composting plant, which is the name what says on the tin. It's a composting plant and it produces compost for agriculture, but it doesn't produce a fuel. But the problems and reason that they're coming along with the consultations, such like, is it's all right, you can say, yes, we're going to collect all this stuff, but at the moment, there's nowhere in Cumbria and very few places in the whole country that can actually take this waste and produce it, either gas or a compost. So it's a chicken and egg situation. You need the infrastructure there to be able to use the stuff you collect. But until they get a system in where they know they're going to get the feedstock, they aren't going to build the plants. You know, they won't invest in it. So they've come along with this that's going to say by a certain date, everybody's going to be doing things. But again, there's a lot of problems with long existing contracts, such as we've got with Renewy in Cumbria, that from mind, I think it's 2034 that contract runs out. But in the consultation that I've seen up to now, they're only allowing people to go up to 2031. So there would have to be some arrangement of changing the contract. And that's the same in a lot of places in the country. They've got 25-year contracts. And they've got a plant there that relies on, in part, on having food waste and other materials going into their plant. So it's going to be a complicated thing. Hence, we're drawing all our questions forward as to how we're going to cope with this. The other thing that concerns me is there's about 40% of authorities in the country do collect food waste. If you're going to do this, and they say it should start from about 2023, that's an awful lot of trucks and bins that's going to be produced. You know, thousands upon thousands, and there isn't the capacity within the country to build that many. So it's going to have to be staging over quite a period, but it'll come in the end. I'll be retired by then, but it'll be coming in sometime or other.
Sorry, can nobody hear me? All right. No, I was doing a HD Wells, as I was saying, looking into the future. A lot of these things, like I've just mentioned there, it might not come about yet, but it's something to look at. And it's going to affect future generations, my children and grandchildren. So that's why I raised the question, because at the moment, you put food waste in your black bin in amongst everything else. It's not even segregated, you know, if you wanted to do something with it. So that was it. And I think you could increase your benefits of waste by doing that. So.
Thanks, Des. Councillor Pemberton.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to say, there's an old saying, there's lies, damn lies and statistics. And for statistics, you can put percentages. And I don't want to see in a few years' time Barrow being at the bottom of a league table because of the return of bottles and this percent and that percent. So in the recycling process, we've lost control of that. We just have to take the figure of the contractor who says we had to dispose of so-and-so and we could only accept them. So I'd like to make sure that when we do go into any sort of programme, that it is a level playing field for everybody and that we don't get bad publicity out of it again like we have done with the recycling. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Anne?
Thank you. It's not my field, this, but I think it's everybody's responsibility, and that is the issue, isn't it? That waste management and recycling is the future, and we've got to do it. Natural resources are running out, and we've got to be in there and doing it. And if we move in option 2 on this report, because option 2 is actually saying that this is the DEFRA model that we want to join with, because on the other side is the alternative option is to do nothing, and that would mean that Barrow's views are not taken into consideration when DEFRA do that. So I think we've got to be in there, we've got to have our views known, and we've got to actually look at the future, as Des said. You know, we cannot be left behind in this recycling and the waste management structure. We've got to be in there, and we've got to be doing it, and we've got to be selling that to the members of our community, that they've got to manage the recycling better. You know, we can't just be responsible for what everyone's putting in the bin. We've got to make them responsible for what they're putting in the bins. And I think that's the point, isn't it? You know, we cannot go around snooping in everyone's bin and saying you're not doing it properly. We've got to make sure that they understand when they're doing it what's recyclable and what's not, and where we can go. So it's a big thing going forward. Our youngers are actually in tune with this better than we are. You know, they're doing a lot of that work at schools now, which is great. And I think what Des said is the future. So we've got to go along with this option 2. You're right, John, and get in there with our voice to be heard within this DEFRA consultation period that's going on. So yeah, if you want someone to move that option, I will move it.
Thanks, Anne. Any more comments?
Can I just come back on that, Chair? I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
suggesting that we don't do anything. I'm not suggesting that. What I am saying is that whatever we do, we should be in control of the information that is coming out. And we are not put in an embarrassing position by other people who are putting forward figures that are not true or incorrect. Thank you.
Thanks. Sam, you want to say something?
Thank you. This being a DEFRA proposal, it's not a government mandate, and so where will it leave us, or how implementable will it be in terms of our current contract with the waste management provider?
Yes, please, John.
Our contract is due, I think we've got just under 3 years left, and none of this is due to kick in before then. But what we do want to do, and again, what one of the councillors alluded to with Mike Garden that came along to do the presentation, that's about us, the work we've been doing with them, looking to the future of what we should be doing to comply with all this stuff, and with the consistency one going forward, so that when we are in a position to let a new contract or take it back in-house or do whatever we want to do, we know the systems that we need to comply with all this thing. But I can't see in this, with the timescales that they're talking, that we're going to have to change anything in the existing contract. It will be how we plan the specification for the next contract and make sure we get a proper service that's going to deliver what the government says. Because if we don't, we won't get our money back. And that's what they say about an efficient, effective service. We've got to demonstrate to them to be able to get all our money back, to get the full cost returns. But it's beyond, from what I can see, the length of the contract that's currently in place.
Thanks for that, John. Would I be right to presume then that any future contracts will be not negotiated by, but subject to the scrutiny committee?
Yeah, I mean, we've got various member arrangements at the moment looking at the future of what we do with our waste collection service when our current contract ends. We've got a waste working group of members which is working with us, with Mike Gardner from RAP, that's done some modelling of what we should be doing, which John has articulated, and we're actually bringing the outcomes of the RAP report to this committee in July, which will inform next steps of where we go with it next. Does that answer your question?
That does, and thank you, John.
Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. It's a second hand's. Now she's moved it and whatever. I was just thinking on there, Councillor McLeavy's on the waste management group. So there, and just here's a brought up a good point before on about the good old days of Marshy's Sass and Thompson's Orange and whatever. And just thinking we are going backwards, aren't we? When you're thinking, God bless my mother. If we had a chicken, I tell you what, that lasted for a week. It was in this and that, this and that, this and that, this and that, and whatever. So I'm happy, and John's done an absolutely fantastic job. And what I've witnessed on the waste management group, he's got patience, everything going right the way through. So I'm happy to second it, Chair.
Thanks. For no more comments, I just wanted to come back on a couple of things. I think John alluded to it, but we had the other input from other people. It's a team effort, and certainly the RAP stuff, I think, is free of charge from the government anyway, so we'd be daft to not actually get as much expertise and knowledge into this, because it is, obviously, you've seen from just the consultation here, it is quite a convoluted, complicated thing. I think John said it's boring to read. He suggested possibly, flippantly, it might have been intentionally so, and if it was intentionally made to, they succeeded, because it certainly is a boring read. I totally agree with we need to help the community to do it. We need to make sure people feel good about doing it, because that's when it actually takes off and people do it properly. Looking back to what we've done in the past, like you've mentioned, it is worth thinking about that, but making it relevant for today. So John mentioned that a lot of people get their shopping delivered now. So where in the past they would take their items back and get a deposit back or something like that, so we don't want people to miss out. You can currently, obviously, you can do your composting at home with your food waste. A lot of people don't have gardens, they live in terrace houses, so there's no incentive for them to do so. So I think a lot of this is to actually take the community with us and to say, like, you know, it's good for the environment, it's good for our future, good for our kids. It makes total sense. We'll help you do it and make you feel good about doing it, make it as easy as possible. So I'll read the recommendation now. To agree the response to extended producer responsibility for packaging waste and to agree the response to the deposit return scheme. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Okay, go John. Brilliant, thank you. Everyone agreed? Thank you. Okay. And thanks, John. Can we move on to item 13, Brownfield Land Release Fund. That's you, Steph, thank you.
So a new fund has been released called the Brownfield Land Release Fund, which focuses on creating new homes, but it's only open for local authority-owned brownfield land. The deadline is incredibly tight of the 2nd of June. So this report is asking for delegated authority to myself to submit an application. There's a lot of work that's been done in the background to develop what the proposal will look like, but that has been complicated by the fact that we've been awaiting the outcome of an application that we put into the Local Enterprise Partnership for Get Building Fund, and we had an announcement on Friday that that bid has been successful, and working with Cumbria County Council, we've secured £4 million to help support the remediation of phase 1 of Marina Village. So the next job we have to do this week is to determine which element we now take forward under the Brownfield Fund. So I'm asking you if you will delegate this to me. On a positive note, we've had some conversations with central government about, are we in a good place to apply for this? Does Marina Village feel like it would be a priority, subject to us satisfying the criteria? And we've had some really positive feedback that we should submit a significant application, even though the national figure is 50 million, because a lot of the big local authorities and the mayoral regions are unable to apply for this fund. So we've got a really good fighting chance to get some resource from this. So apologies that I couldn't bring you an application, but we're up to the wire on this one till Wednesday.
Thanks, Steph. Any questions or comments, Kevin?
Move the recommendation, Chair. We've got no time, have we?
Yeah, sure.
I just wish it good luck, because I'm just working it out. I think it's 25 years ago since the marina situation, the site down there, was first talked about in the planning process with getting a marina with housing and development. And I've still got the documents at home when we talked about that. 25 years we've been pushing this. And so if we're going to get the start, what we didn't want to happen, and what I still worry about, is that we don't get the proper development, but we get housing, and the rest of the site is left to just fend for itself, whole thing. And what we want to do is housing plus the development down there of what we want with tourist trades and even somewhere for people to sail in and out of, and look at the fantastic situation we've got down there with Peel Island and everything else. I mean, it was all about our environment and natural environment, and plus extra housing down there. But what we don't want, and what I've never wanted, and I think what most of us never wanted, is just a housing development. And as long as we've got that in the process, that we're looking at everything else as well on top of that, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. We've got a seconder for that. Yes, thank you. Everybody in favour? Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We move on to item 14, Heating and Ventilation Services Contract. That's you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good afternoon. This report concerns a contract that we have for the service and maintenance of heating and ventilation in the council's operational buildings. So that's all buildings that we're responsible for, apart from the council's housing stock. This issue has been before members before, with a view to retendering this contract, which we duly did. Unfortunately, there were a couple of issues with the retendering of this contract, which is the reason that I'm coming back to you asking for a further extension of the contract till the 1st of September to allow the tender exercise to be rerun. The two issues that we experienced were that we, although we got quite a lot of interest in the contract, from expressions of interest from various contractors, we only received one completed tender submission, and that wasn't completed correctly, so really wasn't a valid tender. The second issue was that whilst we asked for expressions of interest before a given date, there were a number of contractors who did indeed express that interest before the cut-off date, but what that should have triggered was a sort of automatic release of the tender documents to those contractors. But for some reason that's not within our control, because this is a software package that we use, it's not an internal IT process. There were a number of contractors who didn't receive the tender documentation, so weren't therefore able to submit a tender. We've contacted the software providers to ask for sort of clarification on why this might have happened, and an assurance that there's a bug fix been done to make sure it won't happen again. But the overall result of that is that we're not really in a position to appoint a new contractor, and therefore need to rerun the tender, and are asking for a period up until the 1st of September to do that, with a view to completing the tender over the next month to 6 weeks and bringing a report to the Executive Committee in July.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions or comments? Hazel?
Just one that went through my head. Bearing in mind the awful thing we had about Legionnaire's disease, do we flag this up a lot more now? Do we make sure that we've got everything watertight and that we check on a very regular basis?
What we have is this isn't just an annual service of gas boilers. This is principally about gas appliances, although not completely, because there are some items of ventilation equipment that are electrically powered. So it covers all of that heating and ventilation equipment. Each piece of plant we have recorded on an asset management system, and against each piece of plant there's a maintenance schedule. So there are obviously there's the major annual service that we need to do statutorily, but in addition to that there are 6 monthly tasks, quarterly tasks and monthly tasks that are listed against each item of plant. What we do with the service reports that we get for the contractor is we then load them onto the asset management system against the individual items of plant in the various premises that we have. So we're able to monitor that, week by week, really. Every week we get reports on what if any, maintenance tasks are outstanding. And the other thing to say about this is this is not purely about the routine servicing. It's also about any reactive maintenance. So it's not just, oh, well, the boiler needs servicing every 12 months. There are some additional items to do every 6 months and every quarter. It also covers the boiler's not working or there's no hot water, so somebody needs to come out and fix it. It covers both of those aspects of maintenance.
Thanks, Hazel. Thanks, Chris. Anyone else? Okay. So the recommendation is that you approve the current services contract for maintenance, heating and ventilation is extended to 1st of September 2021 to allow for the tender exercise to be rerun. Have a mover and seconder, please. Thank you. Everyone in agreement? Good. Thank you. Move that. Right, the next item is the part 2 item. So can we have a mover and seconder to go into part 2, please?
Seconded.
Thank you.
Before we go into, can we?
you.